Welcome to Tales Around the World. Here we uncover the original versions of stories you may think you know. These are fairy tales that are not only beautiful, wise, and thrilling, but also at times gruesome and violent. These tales, passed down through generations, reveal the darker truths behind the folklore. Viewer discretion is advised as some stories may contain themes not suitable for children under 13. So sit back, relax, and let us guide you through the magical, haunting, and unforgettable world of tales around the world.
In a quiet little village on the coast of Africa, at the edge of a vast forest, there lived a woodcutter, his wife, and their two grown children, a gentle, kindly sister and a proud, grasping brother. The father's axe had kept them fed and warm for years, but age crept in. One evening he returned from the trees pale and exhausted, lay down and told his children with a shaking voice that his time had come.
"You may have one thing,"
he whispered.
"my blessing or my goods. Choose wisely, for you cannot have both."
The son, blunt and greedy, answered at once.
"Give me the property."
The daughter bowed her head and said only,
"Give me your blessing, father."
He laid his hand on her brow, murmured a gentle benediction, and fell silent forever. A few days later, the mother followed him to the grave. Now the two siblings stood alone. The brother strode into the little hut and claimed every scrap as his own. He ordered his sister to gather bed, stool, cloths, pots, everything, and pile it outside. Villagers stood watching, horrified, as carriers hauled off the household piece by piece. Only when the crowd protested that the girl would be left with nothing did he, to quiet them, toss her a cooking pot, a pestle, and a mortar, grudging tokens thrown like crumbs.
"She wanted blessings,"
he sneered.
"Blessings are all she deserves."
With only those 3 items and the mercy of neighbors, she struggled on. Most villagers were poor, but they lent what they could. They borrowed her mortar and pestle in turn, leaving a handful of corn or a crust of bread so she would not starve. Hungry nights were many. Hope was thin. One day, while she crawled under the floorboards and searched rafters for any forgotten scrap her brother might have missed, her fingers closed on something hard and smooth, a single, large pumpkin seed. It was small luck, but it was something. She planted it behind the hut, watered it with what little she had, and tended the tiny shoot as if it were a child. The vine did not merely grow, it erupted. In a matter of weeks, it ran across the yard, unfurling leaves that shimmered in the sun. Buds fattened into monstrous green pumpkins that hung like lanterns among the vines. When she took the first ripe fruit to market, people stopped and tasted.
"Never have I eaten anything so sweet,"
they said. They came back the next day and the next, and soon the woman was carrying baskets of pumpkins that sold easily and fetched good coins. It was at this point, when neighbors were still borrowing her tools and leaving grain in exchange, and when her vine was promising fruit, that the brother sent out idle questions. He learned that his sister had been getting food only because the villagers borrowed her pestle and mortar and left her a little in return. Fury flared in him like fire.
"Had I known she would profit by it,"
he spat,
"I would have given her nothing."
That evening he walked into her hut without knocking, seized the cooking pot, the pestle, and the mortar, and carried them off in silence. The poor woman lay awake all night, panicked and trembling. At dawn, with the first pale light, she remembered the vine. She ran to the back of the hut and found the yard a tangle of green, and the pumpkins ripe and heavy as bells. Her heart leapt. Cutting several of the largest, she took them to market and sold them for a good price. Day after day, the vine kept yielding as if fed by some secret well. Soon she could buy a bed, mend her home, and fill her granary. Word travelled fast. One afternoon the brother's new wife sent a servant to buy a pumpkin. When the servant revealed who she served, the sister, proud and gentle, handed her a fruit without asking for pay. The news reached the brother like a slap. His sister, left with only 3 meager things, had become rich selling pumpkins.
Tomorrow, I'll rip that vine up,
he vowed to his wife.
She wanted blessings, not wealth, and I'll be sure she has nothing more.
At dawn, he marched to her gate and demanded she show him the plant. Fearful and heartbroken, she led him to the trailing stems. The vine sprawled, heavy with fruit and dew. He drew a knife, spitting that she had no right to prosper. She threw herself between him and the roots, clutching the stem.
If you will cut the plant, you must cut my hand too,
she cried. Her brother answered with a swing. The blade flashed, green leaves shivered, the vine came down, and her right hand fell to the ground, severed at the wrist. She screamed while he turned away, leaving her bleeding and bewildered. Neighbors ran to help, bound the wound, begged her to stay. But she feared her brother would return to finish what he started. So she fled into the forest. For days she slept in the boughs and fed on wild fruit, the stump at her wrist a constant ache, her courage ebbing. One afternoon she climbed a tall tree to rest and to weep. Beneath the branches a hunting party passed, men in bright cloths bearing spears. One of them, a prince of the nearby town, though she did not know it, lay down and felt drops on his face.
Rain?
He said puzzledly. The sky was clear. He sent a servant up to see, and the servant found her in the leaves.
Who is that?
The prince asked when the servant came down.
A beautiful woman, and she is crying.
The prince climbed. When he saw her so small and shaken in the branches, something in him softened. He wrapped her in his own cloth, led her from the trees, and took her to the palace. Cleaned and clothed in fine garments, she was still gentle and candid. The prince, honest and ardent, fell in love. His parents hesitated. Who was this stranger who had been found weeping in the woods, and missing one hand too? But when they met her, warmth and kindness made them forgive suspicion. A wedding followed like a festival, and soon the palace echoed with the sounds of a laughing, healthy child, their son. Meanwhile, the brother continued his slow fall, gambling, bad deals, a life of waste. From pennilessness, he wandered until by chance he came to the same town. Hearing that the prince had gone on a long journey, leaving his one-handed wife and their son, he saw an opening and slithered into the royal court with a venomous plot. As he suspected, it was his sister who was the one-handed wife of the prince. He told the king that the prince's wife was a witch, that she had been married and had killed husbands before, and that her missing hand was proof. He urged the king to act. Fear and envy worked more easily on the queen than on the king. Pressured and ashamed, the monarchs did not kill the woman, but ordered soldiers to drive her and the child from the palace immediately. And, in a final cruelty, they had 2 mounds made outside the city so that when their son returned, the parents could say, "Here are the graves of your wife and child." The brother was handsomely rewarded. His falsehood bought him favor and money. The princess fled into the forest with only a small cooking pot she'd been feeding her baby from. The soldiers' shouts faded behind her, and darkness fell. At dawn, exhausted and terrified, she awoke at a tree's base to find her son pointing at a stir in the grass. A little snake slid out. It spoke, pleading to be hidden from a pursuer. Without thinking, she tipped the pot and let the serpent coil inside. Another snake passed, searching for its brother. She pointed deceivingly to where it had gone. When the coast was clear, the hidden snake thanked her and promised she would be saved. It led them through the woods to a clear, still lake. While she bathed her boy, he slipped, splashed, and vanished beneath the water. With only one good hand, she could not reach him. Panic stunned her. The snake urged her to plunge both arms in. Hesitant at first, thinking the serpent was making a mockery of her situation, but she was so desperate, she obeyed. Her hands closed around her child. She hauled him from the deep. As she clasped him, she felt a change. The stump at her wrist had vanished. Her right hand was whole once more. Joy and relief followed. The serpent guided her to an unseen realm, a hidden kingdom where snakes lived in great ancient halls. There the elders honored her for saving one of their kin. When she prepared to leave, the serpent parents pressed gifts into her hands, a ring that would summon food when she wished, and a tiny casket that, when opened, provided clothes, a house, and other needs. With the ring on her finger and the casket hidden, she walked back toward the city where her husband might be. The prince returned home in mourning. He thought the graves were real and would not be comforted. One morning, restless and dying of longing, he noticed a dazzling house on the horizon, a fine mansion that had not stood there before. Curious, he steadily approached the mesmerizing house, and a crowd followed. The princess had asked the casket for a home in which she proudly admired outside her doorway. When the prince saw his wife at the doorway, his child in her arms, he ran and took them both in for a warm hug. She told simply and steadily all that had happened: the theft, the pumpkin vine, the cruel blow, the exile, and lastly, the snake's gift. Rage spread through the crowd. Men raced to find the wicked brother and drag him out, but she raised her hand and begged mercy.
"Spare him,"
she said.
"Let him live with his guilt."
The people drove the man from the town instead, and the prince restored his wife and son to their place by his side. From that day forward, he forbade anyone in his realm to harm a snake, for a serpent had returned to him the life he loved. The princess lived on in honor and peace, her restored hand a small, constant wonder, and her blessings, both the father's and those earned by her courage, outshone any property her brother had ever taken. The palace echoed with laughter and song. The prince, princess, and their son stood together, a family reunited, stronger for every trial they had endured. And from that day, the people of the village knew courage, mercy, and a pure heart could turn the darkest misfortune into a story of wonder. Thus, the princess's life became legend, a tale whispered in forests and sung in villages, a story of resilience, love, and the unexpected magic that walks quietly beside those who dare to do right.
What did you think of today's story? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more tales from around the world. If there's a story you'd love to hear next, share it with us below.